Hello and welcome back. And if you remember from last time, we were reading a chapter called The Man in the Hippie Hop Hat, and they are in a stagecoach, which is kind of like a wagon, but smaller, just people crammed inside being pulled by horses. And anyway, the chapter ends and they look up, and the person who'd been sleeping the whole time underneath this hat was Mr. Cut-Eye Higgins. And a few of you were like, who's Cut-Eye Higgins? Well, hello. Remember, Cut-Eye Higgins was the person who stole their money at the very beginning and caused them to be stowaways. And then they figured out who he was with the whole trick of covering good luck with coal dust. And so he was pretending to be a judge, and Cut-Eye Higgins had to go into the coal bunkers to shovel coal. And then when they stopped off the coast of Brazil, he snuck away when everyone was busy going into Brazil, and he rowed ashore in a little rowboat. And it was the same rowboat that Good Luck the Pig had been hiding in. So he made it to shore in Brazil. Apparently Good Luck the Pig would have also, and probably just run onto shore, and who knows where Good Luck the Pig is. But Cut-Eye Higgins has somehow now made his way to the gold fields. And he must have gotten on another ship, or whatever the case, he has gotten to the gold fields also. And what are the odds that they would end up with all those people there on the very same stagecoach? So we'll see what's going to happen. And this chapter is called The Rogue Out-Rogued. And a rogue is a person who's just bad news, not doing well. All right. So Cut-Eye Higgins would be a rogue for sure. All right. Praiseworthy remained remarkably calm. He didn't so much as raise an eyebrow, but he did give Jack a faint poke in the ribs with his elbow, as if to say, "Easy, Master Jack. Leave this scoundrel to me." "Small world, ain't it?" grinned Cut-Eye Higgins. His hand remained at rest in silent warning on the butt of his pistol. "I hadn't noticed until today," said Praiseworthy. "If I didn't know better, I'd think you were still in Rio de Janeiro." The villain's scarred eye was set at a squint. "Rio was too hot for me, you might say. So I lit out for Panama. Crossed the isthmus by boat and muleback. A whole parade of folks is getting to the Pacific that way. And looks like I beat you to California at that." "I dare say you had a good map to guide you." The man in the hippie hopper hat bared his yellow teeth in a laugh. A map. Why, what map is that?" Praiseworthy narrowed his glance. "I bring you regards from the good Dr. Buckbee." "Well, now, ain't that neighborly of you?" The stage charged across the valley flats, and the Frenchmen shook handkerchiefs in front of their noses to keep the dust away. Jonas T. Fletcher kept shooting tobacco juice out of the window as if the ground were on fire. Jack's hand fell to the horn spoon in his belt. He could only imagine that it was a 4-shooter. That would make Mr. Cut-Eye Higgins sit up and take notice. Why, he'd beg to hand over Dr. Buckbee's gold map. And if you don't remember, Dr. Cut-Eye Higgins, before he left, stole Dr. Buckbee's map. It was a map to a gold mine somewhere in California. So that's what they're talking to Cut-Eye Higgins about, is the fact that he has a stolen map with him. Okay. But Praiseworthy didn't seem in the least concerned about the lack of firearms. "Oh, have you met Mr. Fletcher?" he said, tugging at his left glove. "He tells us he's an undertaker. A man in your line of work, sir, never knows when he'll need the services of a good undertaker." Remember, an undertaker is a person who buries dead bodies. "I didn't get the name." "Higgins," Cut-Eye Higgins grinned. "Doc Higgins, dentist." "Well, now," smiled the undertaker, "the boys will be glad to have a tooth extractor at camp." Praiseworthy winked at Jack. The impostor had apparently given up his judgeship. A dentist, was he, specializing in extracting gold teeth, no doubt. "And now, if you gentlemen will excuse me," said the butler, "I believe I'll catch a nap." Sleep? Jack thought. How could anyone sleep with Mr. Cut-Eye Higgins sitting there? But before the stage had traveled another quarter of a mile, Praiseworthy was napping soundly. Jack sat gazing at the villain, their knees almost touching, and the man in the hippy-hoppa hat gazed back at him. By late afternoon, they had reached the brown foothills, and the stage pulled up at a relay station for a change of horses. With the mountains rising at their shoulders, Praiseworthy and Jack stood at the wall, refreshing themselves with dips of cool water. The 4-horse team was being replaced with a team of 6 for the hard climb ahead. So now they've been on flat ground, but they're at the bottom of the Sierra Nevada mountains, and they have to start going up into the mountains. So they need more horses, more horsepower to be able to pull the stage up the mountain. Ooh, this sounds like not fun to me. "Do you think he's got Dr. Buckbee's map with him?" Jack whispered. "No doubt about it," said Praiseworthy. "I'll wager he doesn't take his hand off that dueling pistol even when he sleeps." "Well, we'll need a shotgun to get the map away from him. A 4-shooter at least." "Lacking one and the other," said the butler, "we'll have to rely on our wits, Master Jack. I have no intention of allowing Dr. Buckbee to be cheated out of his map." Soon they were underway again. The narrow road climbed sharply. Oak trees gave way to shadow-darkened pines. The sun was setting across the valley, as if to desert them, and the driver's whip cracked in the air like rifle shots. Inside the wooden coach, the passengers sat knee to knee as before, and held on against the bumps and ruts of the road. Finally, the stage rounded a bend, and the trail seemed to loop up like a ladder. "Everybody out!" shouted the driver. "Push, gents, push!" Cut-Eye Higgins didn't take his hand off his pistol butt for a moment. He pushed with one hand. Slowly, the stagecoach, piled high on top with luggage and supplies, climbed the road. The driver urged the team on with his whip. "Keep at it, gents! We're gaining!" Jack put his shoulder to the coach, like the others, and dug his shoes in the dirt. Halfway up the hill, it seemed to him, the driver must have 6 whips in his hands for all the noise he was making. So I want to be sure you understand that they're in such a steep hill right now that the horses can't pull them up. So everyone who was in the stagecoach had to get out and help push the stage uphill. Seems scary. All right, suddenly a window shattered and then another. And just as suddenly, Jack became aware that it wasn't only the crack of the whip in the air. Gunshots! "Road agents!" the driver yelled. He set the brake and reached for his rifle. "Hold up!" Praiseworthy pushed Jack under the coach. Jonas T. Fletcher beat him there. Through the spokes of the big wheels, Jack saw a dozen horsemen with red bandanas around their faces charge out of the pines. Cut-Eye Higgins drew his dueling pistol and fired. He missed. The leader, a big fellow with holes in his boots, called to the driver, "Throw down your rifle, the rest of you reach for the sky, or I'll send you there pronto." Jack swallowed hard and came out in the open. Praiseworthy gave him a reassuring glance and didn't seem scared at all. They raised their hands. Cut-Eye Higgins growled to himself, but his arms shot up like the others. "Sorry to interrupt your journey," said the leader. "We'll only detain you for a moment. Boys, hop to it." 2 of the outlaws climbed to the top of the stage and threw down the trunks and boxes and carpet bags. Others broke them open to paw through the contents for valuables. Meanwhile, another pair of road agents made quick work of the passengers. They pulled watches and chains off vests and tugged buckskin pouches of gold dust from pockets and belts. Jack tried to not look up at Praiseworthy's white gloves. Do you remember what's in Praiseworthy's white gloves? His gold dust in his fingertips. The outlaws would never think of looking there, would they? "All right, gents," said the gang, threw the bandana across his mouth. "Now lower your hands one by one, and let's have your rings." He started with the Frenchman and then came to Cut-Eye Higgins. He wore a gold ring set with a ruby, like a drop of blood. Stolen, no doubt, thought Jack. The rogue is being outrogued, but it was small comfort. "Why, I wore this ring since I was a lad," said Cut-Eye Higgins. "It won't come off." "In that case," the outlaw laughed, "we'll just have to cut off your finger." Cut-Eye Higgins removed the ring in an instant, and the highwayman roared with laughter. "I don't have a ring," said Jack. "I can see that, boy." The road agent moved on to Praiseworthy. "Well, looky here, we got a regular gentleman with gloves, too." "Not a gentleman," corrected Praiseworthy. "Merely a butler." "What's that? Never heard of a butler." Jack's heart began to beat faster. Praiseworthy pulled off his right-hand glove. Their gold dust, their grub stake, would soon be exposed. But Praiseworthy seemed unconcerned as could be. "How about the other hand?" growled the outlaw. "Naturally," said Praiseworthy. He pulled the glove off each finger, carefully but casually, and held up his bare hand for everyone to see. The gold dust remained in the fingers of the glove. No rings, as you see. So when he was taking off the glove, he was going like this and pulling the glove off so that the gold dust is still down here. And he's like, "Oh, no rings." So the gold dust is still in the glove. All right. As the outlaw moved on, Praiseworthy gave Jack a wink without winking and very calmly pulled the gloves on again. But another big fellow was emptying Praiseworthy's carpet bag in the dirt. Shirts, cufflinks, hairbrush. "Why, looky here, a picture. A regular beauty, ain't she?" Jack recognized the tintype at once. It was his Aunt Arabella. He didn't know Praiseworthy had her picture along. When he glanced up, Praiseworthy had gone white with anger. "I'll thank you to return that picture to my bag," he warned. "You don't say. Why, I'll be proud to own a picture like this. I guess I'll just take it along." The rest happened so fast that Jack missed half of it in the blink of an eye. Praiseworthy, in his fury, struck like a bolt of lightning. Grabbing the ruffian to his feet by the shirt front, he slammed his left gloved fist into the man's bandana-colored face. The outlaw hurled back as if he'd been struck with a stick of wood, and he just lay there. "Why, look at that," said the undertaker. "Knocked that big fella 15 feet uphill." If his fellow outlaws held their fire, it was only because they were too startled by the butler's awesome left jab. They were like trees growing from the ground. And then the leader seemed to grin behind his bandana. "I'll take my hat off to you, but it ain't fitting for a man in my line of work. That was something to see, boys. Lift our fallen friend across the saddle and we'll be gone." Jack gazed at Praiseworthy with fresh admiration. The butler had never let on that he was so handy with his fists. The truth of the matter was that Praiseworthy had been as surprised as the others to see the brute go flying. And then he remembered the heavy gold dust packed in the fingertips of his glove. It was exactly as heavy as lead. With his fingers clenched around it, his fist had the kick of a mule. And we're going to stop right there.